All right. Volunteering is not one of my natural gifts. It's just, I don't know why that is, but it never has been. And even if I didn't have anything better to do, even if knew I was fully competent to do what was being asked for, I was the guy who would sit in the background and hope someone else would volunteer. And I don't know why. It didn't really matter what it was for. And I can't point to a reason for that. I'm sure it had to do with my introvertedness growing up. But there was no clear moment of embarrassment or failure or humiliation that I can point to that would make any sense about my aversion to volunteering. If the nose goes thing was around when I was growing up, I'm sure I would have participated in that because I did like to volunteer. I didn't like to be near the head of the line. But over time, I grew and I matured, both socially and spiritually. And now I volunteer for things because I know it helps people out. I know it blesses people. It's an important way for us to serve God. Volunteering represents willingness, and without willingness to let God mess up our plan and our expectations, we're never going to grow spiritually, and we'd miss out on so much that God has for us. So with that said, can I get a volunteer? Casey, you're first. Come on up here. So you just volunteered to receive $5. So you can go back to your seat. Can I get another volunteer? All right, Janessa. Okay, you just volunteered to stand up here and hold your arms out like this. All right, good. Thank you. Just keep doing that. So, it's a no-brainer to volunteer when we know we're going to receive a free gift or when we're going to get an immediate reward for that. But when volunteering requires some effort, when we don't know what to expect or what's going to happen, it's another story. And I know some of you can relate to my natural tendencies with volunteering. And whatever it's for, to speak, to pray, to serve, to go do something, there's just that natural aversion to it, and some of you can relate to that. Others of you seem like you were born to volunteer, and thank you, bless you for that. Probably most of the people here are somewhere in the middle. And, there's certain situations where we would be happy to volunteer and step up and we'd be able to do it. And there's other situations where we would rather be invisible and hope no one can see us and call us out on something. So maybe those areas that hold us back are connected with a fear or failure, maybe just uncharted territory and the unknown. Maybe I wonder if my volunteering will make any difference. Like with Janessa up here is wondering what she's doing out here. You're being a valuable object lesson to these people right now. So thank you for that. I'll keep you around for just a little bit more. So we've been doing this 3-part series on dangerous prayers. And we've covered 2 of those so far. The first one was Search Me. God, I know that you know everything that's going on inside of me anyways, but God, I give you permission to the backstage pass, all access. I didn't clean anything up for health and safety inspection, just as is, come in and look around and shine a spotlight on if there's anything in my life that doesn't please you right now, and then we can work on that together. Search me. That was the first dangerous prayer, and that is a dangerous prayer. The second dangerous prayer was Stretch Me. God, I tend to get too comfortable and complacent in my life, and then I don't see you moving. So stretch me outside of my comfort zone, not just a little bit, but even stretch me to a breaking point. So I'll be broken and poured out so that I'll rely on you and see you move around me, stretch me. It's another very dangerous prayer. And some of us, Shness, I'll let you go sit down. Thank you. So some of us have been taking these challenges, and you've asked God to search you, and maybe He's started revealing things. Maybe it's something that you knew you needed to take care of anyways, or maybe He's revealed something in an unexpected area. Just think of the deltoid muscles that you worked on tonight. Some of us have asked God to search us. Some of us have risked that second prayer of stretch me. Maybe opportunities at Crave. Maybe you've been stretched through all the sickness that's been going around. Maybe a completely other way, God has stretched you to a point where you really need to rely on God a lot more than usual lately, and that's a good thing. Maybe you've heard the challenges of this series and maybe feel like a little bit like a wimp. Try to be honest, I haven't had the guts to pray those dangerous prayers yet. I like playing it safe. I like that pile of darkness in the back corner of my life. I like the comfort of my comfort zone. Well, if that's the case for you, you're not alone. And even some of the major people in Bible history were in that same boat. They were reluctant to let God mess up their plans. And we're going to look at a couple of those characters in Bible history. Think about Jonah. Jonah was a real person, not just some allegory. In 2 Kings 14:25 says that Jonah prophesied that King Jeroboam II of Israel would restore the borders. There had been a lot of wars and territories taken, and he was going to restore the borders of Israel, and that prophecy was fulfilled. But Jonah is most known for the incident with the whale. So we're going to read Jonah 1, verses 1 through 3. Jonah 1, verses 1 through 3, if you want to follow along in your Bible. Jonah would be towards the backside of the Old Testament. Jonah 1, verses 1 through 3. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for the evil has come up before me." But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. So God told him to go to this one place, Nineveh, and Jonah got in a boat and went to this other place. And it doesn't really register for us unless we know where those places are. So we're going to look at a map. Here's the Mediterranean Sea. And we've got Israel over here on the east edge of that, and Joppa was a seaport on the Mediterranean. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria, which was a very evil empire, an enemy of Israel. And they were over here to the northeast. And then Tarshish was probably this seaport in Spain. So God says to Jonah, go to this city 500-600 miles to the northeast, and Jonah instead catches a boat to go to the other side of the Mediterranean, about 2,500 miles away. So that's a long ways in the wrong direction. God said go, Jonah said no way, and ran. Of course, God got his attention with the whale incident and persuaded him. Another reluctant prophet was Moses. What? Moses? Like the Moses, the guy who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, the guy who did miracles, the guy who his face shone because he spent so much time with God. that Moses. He didn't start out so amazing or so willing. So we're going to watch DreamWorks' portrayal of Moses' first encounter with God through the Prince of Egypt.
I love that movie.
Here I am. Take the sandals from your feet. For the place in which you stand is holy ground. Who are you? I am that I am. I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
You were born of my mother's women. You are our brother.
What do you want with me? I have seen the oppression of my people in Egypt, and have heard their cry. So I have come down to deliver them out of slavery and bring them to a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And so unto Pharaoh I shall send you, me. Who am I to lead these people? They'll never believe me. They won't even listen. I shall teach you what to say. But I was their enemy. I was the Prince of Egypt, the son of the man who slaughtered their children.
You've chosen the wrong messenger. How can I even speak to these people? Who made man's power? Who made the deaf, the mute, the seeing, or the blind? Did not I? Now go!
So that was taken from Exodus chapters 3 and 4, and I think that was a great portrayal of the scene, but it's a movie, so they left out some of the details, and we're going to look at a couple of those details. When God told Jonah to go, Jonah just ran the other way. When God told Moses to go, Moses started arguing with God about it. He didn't want to do it, and started making up excuses. And he came up with more excuses than were portrayed in the movie. So Exodus 3, we're going to start with verses 10 and 11. I'm just going to highlight kind of Moses' part here. God says, "Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" Verse 13. Then Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers sent me to you, and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" Chapter 4, verse 1. Then Moses answered, "But behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, 'The Lord did not speak to you.'" And then verses 10 through 13. But Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? Now therefore go, and I with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. But Moses said, "Oh my Lord, please send somebody else." Are you serious, Moses? Like arguing face to face with God like that? But Moses eventually ran out of excuses, and God used him in an incredible way. So again, if you've been resistant to letting God mess with your plans and your expectations, some major people in the Bible started that way too. But we're going to look at a third prophet, and this one demonstrates our third dangerous prayer. And we're going to learn from the positive example of the prophet Isaiah. So you're welcome to flip over to the book of Isaiah, again in the Old Testament, after Psalms and Proverbs and all that. It's one of the bigger books back there. Isaiah 6, we're going to look at verses 1 through 8. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. The train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." The foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, "Woe is me, for I am lost. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahweh of hosts." Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, "Behold, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for." Now pause there. So Isaiah felt the same feelings of inadequacy before God that Moses did. But God, through the angel, told Isaiah, it's taken care of. It's atoned for. And Isaiah's like, okay, let's move forward. Verse 8. I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?" Then I said, "Here I am, send me." So that's our dangerous prayer number 3, is send me. Dangerous prayer number 3, send me. So here Isaiah is standing in God's presence, and God says, "I need a volunteer." He didn't say where. He didn't say what. He didn't say how. He just said, "I need a volunteer." And Isaiah's like, ooh, pick me, send me. Here I am, pick me, send me. He didn't care what it was going to be for. He just wanted God to pick him. Now, and we know this wasn't a spotlight thing or an ego thing. It wasn't a look at me thing for Isaiah, because just a moment ago he was terrified. But Isaiah was a willing volunteer because of who was asking him. Isaiah was a willing volunteer because of who was asking him. The details didn't matter compared to who was asking. And it didn't end up being a cushy opportunity. It was hard what God asked him to do. And with this particular occasion, God ended up asking him to prophesy to a people who would be too stubborn to listen. That'd be a job to be excited about. They're not going to obey, but I want you to tell them anyway. Just think of how difficult that would have been not to take personally the people's rejection of that. But it didn't matter, because Yahweh the King had asked him to do that. Another time later on in Isaiah's life, God told Isaiah to strip off his clothes. Didn't give a reason. Just strip off your clothes, wait for further instructions. 3 years went by before God told him the rest of it. Isaiah 20 verses 1 through 5 tells that story. Basically, Isaiah was an object lesson for Israel, naked for 3 years. Kind of crazy. It was kind of like Israel had put their trust in Egypt, the countries of Egypt and Cush, instead of in God. And so God's like, the Assyrians are going to come and lead the Egyptians and the Cushites away naked, captive to Assyria. And so Isaiah was this living example of what was about to happen. Now, if God came here tonight and gave that instruction, that specific instruction, I'm pretty sure a few of us would literally die of embarrassment. But that was the Old Testament, and God doesn't relate to his church in the same way he related to people in the Old Testament. So thankfully, that's not an instruction he's ever going to specifically give us. Thankfully. The point is, when God needs a volunteer, we won't know ahead of time whether it's going to be something that's immediately rewarding, like receiving a free gift, or if it'll be challenging. And holding your hands out to the side for a few minutes as an object lesson might lead to some sore shoulder muscles, but God's probably going to ask us to do some things that are a lot harder than that if we volunteer ourselves to him. And we don't need to know what we're volunteering for, just who we're volunteering for. And does that involve risk? It sure does. That's why it's one of our dangerous prayers. Here I am, Lord, send me. Here's a couple of New Testament passages that can give us courage and perspective when we're not sure we have the boldness to pray that prayer. Galatians 2, verses 19 and 20. For though through the law I died to the law so that I might live to God, I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So think about our object lesson as a reminder of being crucified with Christ, having our hands stretched out. And what Jesus went through for us is going to be worse, way worse than whatever we go through for him. The other passage is 2 Corinthians 5, verses 14 and 15. For the love of Christ controls us, because we have concluded this, that one has died for all, therefore all have died. And he died for all, that those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who for their sake died and was raised. That's a good reminder that if I'm a Christian, life's not about me. If I'm a Christian, life's not about me. If we think about that very long, that thought could change our perceived priorities and expectations in a hurry. We think, well, I got to do this and this and this, and I've got this coming up, and well, you're living for Jesus, not for Troy, not for any of us. That changes our perspective. It's about the one who died so that I might live for him. And if he's asking for a volunteer, should it matter what it's for? So what does this look like? Am I talking about the next time God asks for a volunteer to step up within his house, that we should all be scrambling to take that volunteer spot? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that every one of us has a next step. Every one of us has a next step. And a step after that, and a step after that. And some of us might already know what our next step is. A lot of us might not know what that next step is. The Send Me prayer looks like telling God yes for your next step, for my next step, before he reveals the details. The Send Me prayer looks like telling God yes for your next step before he reveals the details. If God says, Mila, I want you to be my representative for, if Mila's on board with this challenge, her answer should be yes before she knows all the details. If he says, Jared, I want you to go share the gospel with, Jared's on board, the answer should be yes before he knows all the details. Stephanie, I want you to ask questions of, yes. Nathan, I want you to lead in, yes. It may be talking to someone specific in your class. It may be getting baptized. It may be giving your summer up to God to work in ministry. It may be just showing up and following through. Maybe considering an internship with His house or some other ministry. When God says, who will go for us? Our challenge is to say, here I am, send me. God, search me. God, stretch me. God, send me. What would happen if we became a church that took these dangerous prayers seriously? Search me, stretch me, send me. Whatever it is, God, wherever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do next. If we apply this as a group, do you think our light could be hidden? It would shine. I'm willing. I've been praying these, and I'm praying this one too. And I hope that you'll join me in volunteering for the King, whatever He asks, wherever He sends us. Let's pray. God, I thank you that you